over, Bob. Me have to go body. Just wait. Guard duty is almost over. But me have to go bad. Okay. You go, I'll stay.
Guys, I didn't want to make this video. I contemplated for a long time just skipping this game. I thought maybe you guys wouldn't even notice. Maybe I could get away with just releasing that 4-minute gameplay video and move on. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't just leave this reeking pile of manure untouched. I had to do my due diligence as a Fallout YouTube person reviewer thing and release a full review of this game. My next debate was whether or not to outright drop this piece of schmegma before I completed it. By the time I got halfway through this game, I could not stand it anymore. I thought maybe I could just let this one go. Maybe I didn't have to torture myself by playing this game to the end. Looking at the second half of this game was as if I were looking directly into the cold, black abyss of misery and despair. I wanted to look away, go back to the warmth of better games, worthy of my time, but I don't back down so easily. I played this game of video nature to the bitter end, and I can say that it is one of the worst video games I have had the displeasure of playing. It's the Fallout video game we chose to forget, discarded in the sands of time, and left to languish and rot in an utterly ignominious legacy of its own making. The game I am talking about, of course, is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Do not conflate Fallout Tactics Brotherhood of Steel with the likes of this filth. Man, perchance I was too harsh on you, Tactics, my child. You look a city built of gold compared to Brotherhood of Steel's pile of shit. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is akin to watching your beloved child get addicted to heroin, PCP, and Fent, and then they just start shooting up schools in their meantime. Okay, maybe that was a tad extreme, but the point stands. Fallout, a series which released 2 bangers in one solid-ass game, lost its way here. In fact, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel lost the plot to such a degree that this game ceases to be a Fallout game. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is an unknown entity, wearing a Fallout skin around itself to convince potential consumers that it is part of the same series as Fallout 1 and 2. So what the hell happened here? Why is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel such a dismal failure of a game? Why did this game, along with many other factors, set in motion a chain of events which led to Bethesda gaining the rights to the series? Why is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel the Fallout game we chose to forget? I think I shall answer this question by starting with the gameplay. It sucks. Alright, on to the story. Okay, fine, I'll actually talk about the gameplay. So, immediately upon looking at this lovely gameplay of Fallout POS, oh, by the way, I'm going to be referring to Fallout Brotherhood of Steel as either Fallout POS or just POS, which, if you couldn't tell, stands for piece of shit. But looking at the gameplay of POS, what stands out to you? I'm assuming your answer is the top-down perspective. I found this top-down perspective to be incredibly disorientating for the entirety of the game. It's zoomed too closely on our protagonist, so using ranged weapons becomes an absolute nightmare at long distances. The perspective can also make it harder to find enemies in certain situations too. One of the easiest fixes to the top-down perspective could have just been a simple zoom in and out option for the camera. This would have given the player the ability to see what the fuck is happening on screen. I additionally think it would have been better to have a regular third-person camera behind our character rather than this top-down variation. There were so many times that I just wanted to see what the fuck my character was pointing at off-screen. As for the gameplay itself, it's a flaccid cock. Fallout POS is an old-fashioned arcade-like hack and slash. Now, that particular game design can definitely work if it is used properly, but POS does not utilize it well. I cannot underscore enough how little strategy this game's combat requires. Half of the boss battles don't even require the player to move an inch. It's pathetic. The hardest boss battle in the game is this fucking guy. Richard throws grenades at point blank distances like a moron and can tank hundreds of bullets because, reasons, I guess. He's the only boss in the game that I felt had a slim chance to kill me due to the fact that his nades actually did some serious damage and I didn't have enough stim packs to offset it. The rest of the boss battles are so easy a toddler could do them. Just watch this. This is one of the final boss battles of the entire game, by the way. Oh, also spoilers, but I mean, you're not going to play this game. Please don't play this game. Save yourself, bro. Just don't play it. Anyway, all the blob does here is suck me off. I offset that damage with hundreds of stim packs and stand in the corner gunning it down. Oh, but that's not the worst of these boss battles because you have to get through 3 of these mutant mouth things to finish the game. I'm going to play, in totality, the final battle of the entire game. It's going to be sped up by a ridiculous amount. And note the fact that I do not move a single time. Just absolute cinema, am I right? The worst part about that particular battle with the last mutant suck-off machine is that I had to do it twice. My gym was about to close, and ladies and gentlemen, I was not about to let this game get in the way of my devious push day. Thus, I paused the game after I defeated the mouth for the first time and came back later. Unfortunately, my Xbox emulator shit the bed, and I had to do it all over again. Yet again, I did not have to move whatsoever, and it took forever to destroy the bullet spongy mutant mouth. While the mutant mouths are the worst of the bunch, the rest of the boss battles are not much better. The Rat Scorpion was a joke. Richard was actually an amazing boss battle, but for all the wrong reasons. It hits that like perfect level of being so bad it's good. I just slammed bullets into tidbitties over here with no strategy and won. The Ghoul Priest, Blake, is butt-ass easy. Addis runs around like a 4-year-old on ADHD with no Adderall, and the aforementioned blobs are just misery incarnate. All the boss battles suck, minus Richard, of course. The regular combat doesn't fare any better. Fallout POS is a strange game in terms of progression. Its difficulty actively deflates the further into the game the player gets. I played on hard, which was the most difficult option available without completing the story. Sorry y'all, I'm not going back to try the hardest difficulty. Hard mode was painfully easy for the vast majority of the game because the economy in this game is more broken than the United States economy was in 1933. Throughout the game, the player trades in their equipment for better equipment from shops or just from containers out in the wild. Their old equipment or any duplicates of the new equipment then can be sold to the shops. Seems like a fairly basic in-game method of exchange, but the issue revolves around how much money the player can make. The player can make bank off selling to shops, and because there is no weight limit in this game, they can sell a shit ton. What ends up happening is the game gives the player way too much to work with, and it destroys the challenge of the game. Fallout POS is split into 3 chapters, and by the final chapter, I regularly had over 1,000 stim packs on hand. The shop charges a laughable amount of money for them, so I just stockpiled my stim packs. As a result, I was unkillable. I didn't die a single time in chapter 3. Not even the final boss battle. You know, the part of the game that's supposed to be the most challenging. POS is a true anomaly in how it handles difficulty. The game directly ties challenge to the amount of stim packs the player has. While other factors do play a role, such as ammunition and weapons, stim packs are by far the most vital determiner of difficulty. POS has enemies directly scale with the player. The player is always receiving new weapons and armor to compete with the enemies of a given area. What ends up happening is that the player never feels dominant over the opponents at any point in the game. It is as difficult to kill the raiders in the first level as it is to kill the mutants in the endgame. The game's linearity intersects perfectly with the progression to create an experience that puts me to sleep faster than Shaquille O'Neal. The game does not allow backtracking like an open world game, and this is owed to the fact that Fallout POS isn't an open world. It's a painfully linear game. In terms of world design, it's more linear than even tactics. Skills, guns, armor, ammo, all of it is meant to keep the player perfectly in line with their opponents. So, if equipment and skills merely keep the player's relative power to their opponents stagnant, what's left as the only mechanic that changes the player's relative power from beginning to the end of the game? That's right, stim packs. Besides stim packs, Fallout POS makes skill acquisition and resource gathering feel empty and meaningless. You know how at the beginning of Fallout 1, you can bum rush the plasma rifle and be a god amongst men for the rest of the game? It was awesome. The game rewards those who understand its mechanics and those who use their brains. There is none of that in POS. Exploration is already mind-numbing. All you have to do is look around obvious corners or take a bend in the path that doesn't lead to the objective. But actually getting new equipment feels pointless. The player can't learn and manipulate the game's mechanics. POS puts the player on rails until new enemies take the stage. Finding and buying equipment, as a result, lacks impact. The only thing a player can do to quote-unquote progress in the game is sitting at the store buying hundreds and hundreds of super stim packs, and that's it. Fallout POS's progression is like the staircase in Mario 64. The player runs and runs, but in the end is in the same fucking spot. Minus the stim packs, of course. Due to the lack of progression, fights end up being a slog where I win not because I outsmarted the game, but because I can heal infinitely and my opponents cannot. Also, my god, is this game riddled with bullshit bullet sponge mechanics. It makes weapons feel like they lack any impact. It doesn't help that the gun designs look like shit too. What did they do to my plasma rifle? Like, the fuck is this design? Hold up. Look at the advanced power armor. Just look at this thing. What the fuck did you guys do? Do you know? Whatever, I give up. Anyway, melee combat is slightly more fun because enemies get launched a million miles away upon scoring a critical, but that in itself poses a problem. When using a melee weapon, you tend to want your opponent close to you. Launching them a mile away puts them outside of your reach. So, in the long run, critical hits can actually be detrimental to the player. The enemy gets the chance to riddle the player with bullets as they scramble to hit them one last time. Melee weapons also have whack hit detection. The player character will visibly be hitting the enemy, but it just won't hit them. It's infuriating and grinds the gameplay to a halt. These little black spider creatures are the worst offenders in this regard. Beyond the combat, this game has some light platforming mechanics, which are fine, I guess. They feel a bit out of place, but they're fine for the most part. They do insta-kill the player, though, which is annoying. These red lasers later on also insta-kill the player, because fuck us, I guess. The game will occasionally do this really annoying thing where they won't show a solid laser, making it look like a doorway is open before just murdering the player. That was fun. Skills are awful and a total downgrade from the previous games. Most are just basic percent boosts to skills. Gone are the dynamic, unique perks of the previous games and the traits and the skill system altogether. Speaking of taking things out, they took out Ron Perlman narrating the player's death. This time we get a guitar riff. For dying? Dog. This gets me going like this, which isn't exactly a state of mind I associate with abject failure, but whatever. You do you, Fallout POS, I guess. Honestly, I could go on for hours picking apart how garbage this game's gameplay is, but you guys get the picture. There isn't anything redeeming here. They stripped all the choice, complexity, and nuance away from Fallout 1, 2, and especially tactics systems and shout out a bland, monotonous, sleep-inducing, repetitive, dull, inelegant, stupid, and mind-numbing gameplay loop. I felt my brain rotting out my head as I slogged through this mess for over 10 hours. In all that time, there wasn't a singular iota of good game design to be found. There are definitely moments here where you can get a laugh at just how incompetent this game is. I certainly did from time to time. However, those unintended bright spots are overshadowed by the rest of the slop in between. In the end, if the guns aren't fun to fire, the melee weapons aren't fun to swing, if the game guardrails me and never lets go of my hand, if there is no challenge, no strategy to be used, nothing to overcome, no fun to be had, then why the fuck am I playing this? If I wasn't doing this for a review, I would have quit the game well before finishing the first chapter. The strength of Fallout's gameplay lies in the strategy, the perfect melding of character creation with weapons and armor. It's always a blast creating a certain type of character, the low intelligence melee Neanderthal, the energy weapon specialist, the gunsmith, the pacifist even. If you didn't use your brain in certain fights, such as Frank Corrigan, you would die. The game punishes you unapologetically. It says outright, fuck you, you failed. Try again. Ron Perlman's narration of the player's death, that failure, it forces the player to adapt. And that's what gaming is about. Fallout POS bled Fallout of all that rich gameplay, reduced to a mindless state of brain rot in which your eyes just glaze over the screen as your character flails his stupid dagger, stick, hammer, or whatever at an enemy over and over, never changing, never evolving. Like I said at the start, the gameplay is just a flaccid cock, and a tiny, shriveled up one at that. Truly a disappointment. Hopefully, the story is a bit better than the gameplay though. Fallout POS begins like Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics with the introduction before the title screen. We get that Interplay logo for the final time, and the narrator, who isn't Ron Perlman, because remember, this isn't a Fallout game, talks about how 50s America dreamed of a better world. Through technology, we hoped to eventually create a utopia. The narrator says that humanity was very close to achieving that dream before a nuclear holocaust occurred, which isn't true. That peaceful existence through the wonders of technology is what led directly to the Great War. In Fallout 1, it shows that humanity's overconsumption of natural resources due to technological advancements is what led to the Great War. We see how truly rotten the pre-war society was through the execution of a POW on live television. The pre-war society of Fallout 1 was gilded in a sense. On the surface, we have these great robots, cars, fusion power, but beneath lay something twisted, an overly consumerist society trapped in war, which invariably ended in the way that war always ends, with destruction and death. So no, we were nowhere near close to achieving that dream at any point, Mr. Strange non-Ron Perlman narrator. He then just says that war happened.
We dreamed of a better world. Clean fusion-powered cars, robots that walk the dog. Peaceful existence thanks to the wonders of science. We were close to achieving that dream when war broke out.
The intro legitimately gives no reason for it. If we were supposedly so close to achieving our goals of a technological utopia, then why did we nuke ourselves? Fallout POS isn't interested in answering that. The narrator then says that the wasteland is full of new mutations, and that there was this army of super mutants who tried to change humanity into their new species. The Brotherhood of Steel rose up against these mutants though, and gave a glimmer of hope to humanity.
They gave humanity peace and a glimmer of hope.
Did we play the same game, Mr. Narrator? The Brotherhood of Steel isn't exactly an organization that inspires hope in the populace, because one of the most prominent characteristics of the Brotherhood is that they do not allow outsiders in and hold a deep contempt for them. They did reintroduce technology slowly to some of the communities, but remained at the outskirts of wasteland society. In Fallout 2, no NPC is clamoring about how hopeful the Brotherhood makes them feel, because the Brotherhood remained confined to their bunkers. Therefore, I'd hardly say that they've inspired hope in humanity. Then the intro ends by saying that the Brotherhood is small in number, and up against a more and more threatening wasteland. We see our three characters before the intro ends. The music choice for this intro is a heavy rock soundtrack. I like heavy rock, but I ain't sure about this one, Chief. I mean, I guess it's what Fallout POS was going for, as the soundtrack is mostly rock, so I guess it works. It's a radical departure from Fallout 1 and 2, but it's aight. In a better Fallout game, I think it maybe could have worked. Unfortunately, it's in Fallout POS, so I grew to dislike the soundtrack. After the intro cinematic, we of course get the title screen. Fallout has a history of legendary title screens. We have Fallout 1 with the sleek Brotherhood T-51B looking off in the distance. Fallout 2 has a darker background with the Enclave advanced power armor, signaling the shift in power and the Brotherhood being replaced, stirring mystery over whose armor this is. Also, the design is top-notch. Fallout Tactics has the Brotherhood again, with those sick wings coming off the helmet, enveloped by flames. Each of them show the most powerful faction in their respective games and are iconic in their own right. So let's see what Fallout POS has. Oh, it's just some fucking guy passed out. Well, that's underwhelming. Wow, does this model look like shit too? My God. Well, I like the music here, I guess. But let's get into character creation. That was always fun to do in the isometric games. Oh, there's no character creation. I always ask why they put those pre-select options in the isometric games, because why would anyone want to destroy the blank slate protagonist? But I guess Fallout POS got the last laugh because it forces the player to pick a pre-made character. I picked Kane because I assumed he was a reference to the GOAT, Tim Kaine. Sorry they used your name in this shitter, Tim Kaine. You deserved better. Kane is a ghoul, and I give this game props for letting us play as a ghoul. He has a resistance to radiation, which is weird because he should outright be unaffected by it or even heal from it. The characters all have their own strengths, like Cyrus is better with big guns, Nadia is nimble, and Kane is a mix between them. I like that, but I would have preferred to make my own character instead. They each have their own backstory too. Kane witnessed Acropolis being subjugated by the mutants and vowed vengeance on them. Thus, he joined the Brotherhood to do that. Again, this further limits the player's ability to fill in the gaps for their protagonist and truly create their own character. But then again, this is not an RPG, so, whatever. We get this excerpt from one of T.S. Eliot's most famous poems called The Wasteland. T.S. Eliot was one of the most prominent writers of the Lost Generation, the generation that fought World War I and became directionless and disillusioned with society in the aftermath. Other such authors of this era include Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby, written by F. Scott Fitzgerald, who incorporated his own life experiences in the novel, remains one of my favorite books of all time. The Wasteland follows similar themes of other Lost Generation writers. T.S. Eliot structured this poem in 5 segments, and this particular line Fallout POS is quoting comes from the first one. This section largely deals with how Eliot views the modern world as barren and desolate, his spiritual being empty in the face of this desolation. This particular line Fallout POS uses emphasizes the hopelessness of humanity's situation. What are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? Is a rhetorical question underscoring that hopelessness. What is usually seen as vitality, rebirth, and growth beyond something is seen struggling due to the stony rubbish. The stony rubbish in this case being society, and the branches symbolic of the futility of finding meaning in a broken, spiritually shattered world. The quote, "Son of man, you cannot say or guess, for you know only a heap of broken images," is indicative of the collapse of traditional ways of understanding the world. In the post-World War I world, these old ways of viewing things, these broken images, preclude humanity from understanding or restoring the world as it is. The last bit, where the sun beats and the dead tree gives no shelter and the dry stone no sound of water, again is meant to create an inverse of images typically associated with rebirth. The sun, the primary symbol of vitality, beats harshly, the tree is useless, and the water is dried up. There is no nourishment or comfort or revival to be had here. It's just a worthless, dried up, useless piece of landscape where no spiritual or emotional growth can be had. I would say that this is a perfect fit for Fallout. Obviously, there's the, it's a wasteland just like the game. But beyond that is a story of humanity reeling from war, trying and for the time being unable to come to terms with it. Even though this particular section is bleak, the end stages of the poem have a sliver of hopefulness in them. Humanity, though shattered and broken, can find redemption, even if they now seem beyond it. Fallout could explore many of these ideas through its stories, and in many ways, it already has. Therefore, bringing up the wasteland, while maybe not the most imaginative option for a game that takes place in a literal wasteland, is rife with narrative potential. However, there comes risk in citing a poem like Fallout POS does. If the story that is attached to the poem is dog shit, well, then it comes off as pretentious, a desperate gambit to seem deep, and makes the story worse in comparison to that poem. Let's see how Fallout POS handles this. After the poem, we get an introduction to the town of Carbon. Okay, we need our setting, makes sense. Then, this cutscene plays.
Back in line, slaves. I can't sell you if you're dead, but I'll shoot you in the back.
Wait, you can't do this.
Shut your mouth, worm, before I step on you. All right, you gorgeous hunks, let's go.
Yeah, this game isn't going to pull off that quote, isn't it? Bruh, could you just imagine if I started a video like this? Hey yo, it's Yo-Ho, Bacheesy-san, coming at you with another informative video. Today, I'm gonna teach you guys how to jork the beef, no hand style. So let's get right. Obviously, that was fucking stupid. And Fallout POS basically does the same thing with this cutscene. Fallout POS does not have a good enough narrative to bring my boy T.S. Eliot into it, and the game looks beyond stupid for even trying to pull that crap. Fallout POS's narrative follows 3 chapters, each with their own conflict. The first chapter entails trying to find our Brotherhood compatriots and getting involved with Carbon's raider problem. The raiders are led by Jane, and yeah, that's a design alright. Far be it for me to tell a woman how she should dress, but when bullets and radiation are flying all over the place, I don't think you want boobs flying out too. But then again, she is able to tank over 100 rounds of ammunition, so I guess she really doesn't need armor or protection from radiation. Not gonna lie, that's pretty badass. The missions in Carbon slowly build to taking Jane out. There are so many goddamn raiders here, it is insane. Carbon's entire population pales in comparison to the sheer amount of raiders the player has to kill. The gameplay never changes throughout any of these battles, and the repetitiveness wears on you quickly. The mayor of Carbon, Richard, betrays the player and joins with Jane to kill them. The best boss battle of all time occurs, and after killing Richard, or well, he actually just blows himself up, but after that, the raiders launch a full assault on Carbon, repel them, assault the raider compound, kill Jane in a super intense boss battle. And that's the end. We learn that Jane is working with a super mutant to supply slaves to their cause. She tries to offer the mutant sexual favors to get him to kill our player, but the super mutant refuses. She then calls him,
You goddamn impotent freak!
Truly, this game is just the magnum opus of writing. Most of the characters in Carbon are just insufferable. We have such legendary characters as Armpit, Ruby, Dick, and random traitor guy. My own character is also insufferable because half the dialogue is just me being a swearing cunt to everyone. Swearing is abundant in this game, and y'all know I have no issue with some expletives. I use them quite frequently, but like with all things, there's gotta be some balance. You can't have every line be a swear, otherwise it comes off as childish and stupid. You know that new Saints Row game where the protagonist just has that line where they say fuck over and over? That's what Fallout POS's dialogue is like. It's superfluous, unnecessary, and childish. Some of the lines in this game are additionally just wild. I didn't record the NPC saying this, so I'll read it out myself. North of us is the bulk of the machinery. Jane the Raider matron hangs around there. She says that she likes the vibrations. Heh. Like, dog, calm down, Fallout POS. Again, maybe if this was just like 1 or 2 lines, but this is the matron's entire character. Combine the middle school style crude jokes with the already juvenile swearing, and the game becomes cringe-inducing. The only characters in Carbon who aren't insufferable are Vidia and the Vault Dweller. Wait, whoa. You mean the Vault Dweller? Like, the protagonist of the first game? Yup, he is an NPC. Just some random NPC. In Fallout 2, he has this mythic status placed on his name. People talk about the stories surrounding him and what he did, and now he's just some fucking guy. Cool. I always thought that the Vault Dweller just stayed in Arroyo until his death, but according to the Fallout Bible, he did actually leave in 2208. I guess he really just wanted to be in Fallout POS. In POS, he's just a bog standard badass drifter and nothing more. Even so, his character is probably the best in the game. Regardless of how good he is as a character, which he isn't even a good character as is, but regardless, he should not be in this game in the first place. Besides him and this nice chick Vidia, everyone else is either not worth mentioning or outright annoying. After the shithole that is Carbon, the player moves to Los, a city of ghouls. Jane tells us before she dies that this is where our Brotherhood paladins went. Los, like Carbon and every other location in this game, just kind of looks shitty. Harold is here at Los for some reason. Cool, I guess. The conflict here in Los is between the player and a cult of ghouls known as the Church of the Lost. Murder hundreds of ghouls, find a paladin, and kill the head ghoul Blake. This paladin turns out to be head paladin Romulus from the first game. I'm noticing a pattern here. I can't help but feel that the devs brought back these legacy characters in an attempt to play off our nostalgia. They don't even do anything with these characters either. The Vault Dweller is just badass, Harold is completely irrelevant, and Romulus gets injured by kamikaze ghouls in a hilarious cutscene. He tells us to find the secret vault the super mutants are trying to crack open, and then just biffs it. This character could have been any paladin. He doesn't act anything like his counterpart in the first game, nor does he have Clancy Brown's sexy-ass voice. What a waste of a character. And he's the only Brotherhood character in the entire game. Yeah, the game that's called Fallout Brotherhood of Steel has a singular Brotherhood of Steel member in it, and it's Romulus, and he fucking dies. At that point, it's just false advertising. Fallout 2 had a more relevant Brotherhood of Steel than this game. It's just so pointless. But hey, we're on the last chapter of the game. The last chapter takes place in this vault called the Corporate Vault. It was a vault made for Vault-Tec execs behind the backs of the Enclave and engaged in intensive biological research. One of the things Vault-Tec studied here was FEV. This particular version of FEV was a highly advanced strain that the scientists attempted, unsuccessfully so, to eliminate the sterility from. The last conflict of Fallout POS is between the Brotherhood of Steel, which is just us, and the super mutants. Yeah, originality really isn't this game's strong suit. The player finds the mutant Jane was dealing with, whose name is Addis. Addis and our character battle briefly before he rips our arm off and tosses us into the Grand Canyon, covered in pitch and lit on fire. Oh wait, wrong game. The reason Addis chooses to chop off our arm is because supposedly there are beasts in this vault who like the smell of blood and will kill us. It's a very stereotypical James Bond villain-esque move where the bad guy lets us live for no reason.
Yes, sir. Okay, you get legs. You get legs. They don't like smelly feet.
God, I hate what they did with the mutants in this game. I get it. They're stupid. But in Fallout 1, despite being stupid, they were always an intimidating threat. The game took them seriously, but in Fallout POS, they're just comic relief. It destroys any intimidation they could have had. Also, their design looks like shit in this game, and that's pretty common across the board. Fallout POS just looks shitty. It's not the good type of shitty. Like, Fallout 1 has definitely aged, but the designs of that game carry it so hard that I honestly think it looks great to this day. But Fallout POS just has such poor designs that the game just looks hideous to look at. Graphics may age, but art is timeless, and Fallout POS lacks that art, so all I see is the age. After falling 100 feet, the player conveniently falls right next to this vault girl. The player follows the girl to the inner vault, and creatures attack both of you on the way. The girl is immortal, so she ends up just tanking all the damage these creatures are dishing out. After slowly moving across the vault in an excruciatingly boring sequence, we are led into the vault. They regenerate our arm, and the objective becomes stopping the mutants. A ton of boring shit and busy work happens. The player kills hundreds of Deathclaws, the mutants then kill all the Vault Dwellers, and we finally find ourselves face to face with Addis for the final confrontation. It turns out the mutants came to the corporate vault to cure their sterility. Oh, so we're copying tactics now. And also, of course that's why they're here. The game tries to make the mutants' motivations some sort of mystery. They make it seem like the mutants are trying to get some big scary weapon, but this is the most predictable, lazy twist the writers could have done. Addis tries the sterility cure on himself and it fails to reverse his sterility. And wait, how did you test that so quickly? He makes it seem like he just took it very recently and he's already able to deduce it failed? Did bro quickly bang one of his mutants right then and there? It doesn't matter. Addis says that the only result of the new strain of FEV was even greater mutation. I didn't realize this at the time because the room was so dark, but his design is actually noticeably different from when we first saw him, which is neat. It shows that the new strain of FEV is taking effect, and I like that. Addis is at first resigned to his failure, but then quickly snaps out of it. He says that the mutants can overcome and chooses to do battle with our character. Yeah, this conversation has neither the depth of the Master nor the sheer badassery of Frank Horrigan. It's forgettable, and Addis as a character is as well. His voice is awesome though, which is unsurprising because it's the same dude who voiced the lieutenant in the first game. The battle with Addis is dumb. He spams Stealth Boys mid-fight, which prevents the player from aiming directly at him for the duration of the fight. When his health goes to 50%, he falls to the ground and his mutations accelerate to undo the damage. He grows to the size of your average New York studio apartment and begins moving erratically. The second round of this fight ends when the player gets him down to around 15% of his health, and this cutscene plays. Addis's mutations accelerate uncontrollably and he explodes into green paste. I was so excited at this moment because I thought that this game was finally over, but unfortunately, this is just the beginning. Addis's paste begins coalescing into several splotches of biomass. I actually think this is really cool in theory. It reminds me a lot of The Master, but my god, is the execution horrible. Just look at this thing. Just look at it. It looks like a mouth coming out of a really fucked up mutant vagina. The mouth itself it just looks stupid. The battle is once again super intense. The battle goes like this. Beat 3 tentacles to then beat this eye and repeat 3 times. Spend 10 minutes in an idiotic tug of war with the mouth as it sucks you off mid-battle. The sucking off part is unavoidable, by the way. After that's gone, kill another one that has no way of attacking you, so you just stand 10 feet away, gunning it down for 10 minutes straight. After that, find the head vault officer, devise a plan to nuke the entire vault to stop the blob, and guess what? Another fucking mouth. This is the one I talked about earlier, and it cannot hit you. You just stand shooting it off screen for another 10 minutes. As the player does this, the blob spouts platitudes about making the world perfect in its image. One of its quotes is, "And it was given unto the beast to make war with the saints, to overcome them. And power was given to him over all kindreds and tongues and nations." Like, fuck off, dude. You're not all that. After this final mouth is destroyed, the player sets the vault to nuke itself in 100 seconds. Run to the vault monorail and get the fuck out of there. The building and the blob go kaboom and it's finally over. This is not a Fallout game. Straight up. Everything about this game reeks of chasing profit over vision. The RPG was removed. The engaging combat, gone. The rich, interesting dialogue, gone. The human stories, gone. Ron Perlman, gone. War Never Changes, gone. Everything was bled out of this game to chase a new and evidently non-existent fan base. The ultimate victory of capital over vision. Even so, it could have been good. Fallout Tactics is not in any way a traditional Fallout game, but that game succeeded through its merits. Say what you will about Tactics, there is an undeniable passion that was put into that game. The designs, the combat mechanics, the weapons, the devs truly cared, even if I lament the fact that they removed dialogue altogether. I don't feel that care with Fallout POS, not even for a second. Fallout Tactics and Fallout Brotherhood of Steel are the two forgotten Fallout games. They share that dubious honor. Despite their shared honor or dishonor, they could not be more different. What's the difference? Fallout Tactics, Brotherhood of Steel, has elements that are worth remembering, and Fallout Brotherhood of Steel doesn't. Even the name lacks originality. Man, this game is so shit. There's just nothing here. Where the sun beats and the dead tree gives no shelter, and the dry stone no sound of water. T.S. Eliot used those words to describe a broken, fragmented, reeling world, shattered by the horrors of war. A generation scarred. Fallout POS tries to parrot those words, but its voice lacks conviction, a pale imitation. It tries to say the same as Eliot, a world broken, shattered by another great war, a generation scarred, left to pick up the pieces. Yet these words find no meaning in Fallout POS's story. No, Fallout POS as a product is these words. It is the wasteland, a desolate, barren, lifeless abyss where nothing is gained and everything is lost. Where gameplay is the harsh sun, the story the lifeless tree, and the dry stone without water the final product. What happens when you stare into the nothingness, into the wasteland? You forget, whether consciously or not. There is no hope here, no hope in the wasteland. Leave. Leave now, while you still have hope. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is a unique failure. Rarely will one find such consensus on a piece of media like Fallout POS. It is the only canonically bad Fallout game, meaning basically everyone agrees that this is the undisputed failure. People defend Fallout 3, 4, 76, and the TV show vigorously, but you won't find many clamoring to defend Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. After having played it, this game earns its status as a failure and one of the worst Fallout products ever released. When I ended this game, I felt anger. I wanted my time back. I'll be on my deathbed thinking about the time I lost to this game. I recommend to everyone watching to stay away from this game. This wasteland, this one is best left forgotten. And with that, I can now say correctly that I have closed the book on the Interplay era of Fallout. Interplay's legacy is deeply tied with the failure of the Fallout franchise. I place all the blame on Interplay for the stagnation of the 2000s, and especially the failure of Van Buren. Van Buren was the point of no return for Interplay's grip on the franchise, and through sheer incompetence and mismanagement, they squandered what should have been a slam dunk. I know it would have been a slam dunk because many of the elements from that game were translated to New Vegas, one of the best games in the franchise. Interplay shelved Van Buren and instead tried to pivot into the exploding console market by shitting out Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, and the result of which, utter failure. This failure then led Interplay to sell their souls to the devil, and we are now living with the long-term ramifications of that decision. Interplay deserves credit for making the Fallout franchise, but they also deserve some of the blame for breaking it. I also blame a certain someone else, but it starts with Interplay. Ever since 1998, that rot set in, with Interplay hampering Fallout 2's development. It's affected the franchise ever since. In totality, the Interplay era has a tenuous and complex legacy. They contributed to the creation of two of the best RPGs of all time, but in many ways, those RPGs, especially Fallout 2, were made in spite of Interplay, not because of it. Fallout POS weighs in as the final black mark on Interplay's reign, a petering wet fart of the publisher's exit. The sad tragedy of Interplay's reign is they spent so much time trying to offset their financial struggles, chasing trends, interfering in development to make a more quote-unquote appealing game to mass audiences. And yet, if they did nothing, if they backed off their developers, they probably would still have the license to Fallout to this day. Imagine a Fallout 2 that had a full development cycle. Imagine what Van Buren could have been. Imagine if they didn't cancel Tactics 2. Interplay was its own worst enemy. Perhaps, in the end, Interplay's legacy is that of a warning of what happens when you prioritize mass appeal, profit margins, and chasing trends over the artistry of that which you are trying to create. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is the climax of this warning, the ultimate endpoint of corporatization over art, the wasteland. You know what's the fuckest thing about all of this though? Despite how awful it truly is, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is still better than Fallout 76 was on release. So at least this game has that distinction. But I'm tired of talking about this game. Next up is the Bethesda era. For now though, I hope you all have a good day. But honestly, fuck this game.